After her encounter with extraterrestrials, a woman turns into a giantess and uses this to take revenge on those who wronged her. Inside the memorial museum dedicated to Nancy Archer, a group of tourists watches a film presentation about her. The film introduces Dr. Victor Loeb, the man who handled Nancy's case. According to him, her case might be special, but he swears the events that transpired in her story are absolutely true. Sometime in the past, a wealthy yet troubled woman named Nancy Archer experienced marital issues with her husband, Harry Archer. This takes a toll on her mental health. Hence, she has to consult her psychiatrist, Dr. Theodora Cushing. During one of their therapy sessions, Dr. Cushing learns about Harry's frequent affairs and his empty promises of ending them. Furthermore, she discovers how submissive Nancy is in their relationship and that she has to be lenient with her unfaithful husband. She believes Harry might be experiencing difficulty being married to a wealthy person like her. Dr. Cushing thinks otherwise and hopes to make her realize she has low self-esteem. Therefore, she suggests that Nancy should prioritize herself this time, but the woman abruptly ends their session. Nancy reasons that she has an important dinner with her father. Since she's leaving in haste, she accidentally hurts herself with her bag, provoking her to try throwing it. Thankfully, Nancy is able to compose herself, but her behavior doesn't go unnoticed by Dr. Cushing. As a result, he asks her if she ever gets angry, and Nancy answers that everyone does. The psychiatrist pushes for more information, asking her what she would do whenever she's angry. Nancy doesn't answer, but she ponders Dr. Cushing's question on her way home. Later that night, Nancy visits a motel and discovers Harry's car, further proving that her husband's probably with his mistress. Out of anger, Nancy grabs a rock and tries to smash the car with it. However, she stops midway as she comes to her senses. Instead, Nancy makes noise to alert Harry of her presence. Tony, the motel's owner, rushes to stop her as she's causing a nuisance. He informs her that Harry isn't around, but Nancy doesn't believe him, especially since his car is in the parking lot. Not wanting to snitch on Harry, Tony insists that Harry might have run out of gas and just left his car in the motel. Still, Nancy is able to see through his lies and realize that Harry doesn't care who knows about his infidelity. Fed up with their marriage woes, Tony advises her to go home and rest. Nancy follows his advice but orders him to inform Harry about her visit. As she leaves, Harry witnesses their exchange and is annoyed since it interrupts his intimate moment with his mistress, Honey Parker, the town's beautician. Honey voices her irritation for Nancy, assuming she's a typical rich, spoiled woman. Hence, she pushes him to leave Nancy, for she believes his wife doesn't deserve him. Harry refuses to leave Nancy since he's yet to acquire her family's fortune from her father, Hamilton Cobb. Moreover, their marriage prenuptial agreement hinders him from divorcing her instantly. To ease Honey's worries, Harry promises to find and use Hamilton's dirty secrets against him. Contented with his response, Honey kisses him, leading them to continue their interrupted intimacy. While Harry's enjoying his mistress's company, Nancy heartbrokenly drives to the desert. There, she encounters a UFO, which flashes a ray of light on her necklace, causing an unstable energy flow. Once done, Nancy hurriedly flees the scene. Because of speeding, Nancy attracts Deputy Charlie Spooner and Sheriff Denby's attention, leading them to follow her. Shortly after, Nancy returns to Tony's motel and alerts Harry of her presence. Again, she interrupts their moment, angering Honey. At that moment, Deputy Spooner and Sheriff Denby arrive and confront her for the nuisance she's causing. A panicking Nancy explains her encounter earlier, but it sounds like someone's taken advantage of her. Now concerned, Deputy Spooner asks for clarification on whether someone actually wronged her. Nancy tries to describe the UFO, but she fails to convince them of such a bizarre occurrence. Therefore, Sheriff Denby invites her to their squad car so she can further clarify her testimony. Soon afterward, Deputy Spooner knocks on Harry's motel room and informs him about Nancy's encounter with an alleged spaceship. Due to his wife's distraught state, the deputy recommends he take her home. Though Deputy Spooner's news must be concerning, Harry plans to use this to frame Nancy as a person with a mental health condition. Through this, he supposes he can access her wealth easily. Back in the desert, Nancy attempts to show Sheriff Denby the proof of the spaceship's presence, but the man remains skeptical. Helpless, she insists he should believe her, but a sudden burst of light interrupts their conversation. She thinks it's the spaceship, so Nancy excitedly alerts him of its arrival. Sadly, the light is actually from Hamilton's car, much to her disappointment. Her father sternly orders her to get in the car, but she tries to explain why she's in the desert. Hamilton refuses to listen and insists she comply. Once alone, Hamilton coerces Sheriff Denby to prevent them from facing the consequences of the troubles Nancy's caused. Due to this influential status, the sheriff immediately agrees. Upon reaching their residence, Hamilton Hamilton makes her sign documents as he wants to acquire the properties Nancy inherited from her late mother. Suddenly, Harry appears and Nancy is excited to see him. Before she can approach him, Hamilton urges her to finish signing the documents, and she complies begrudgingly. When the documents are settled, Nancy eagerly approaches Harry, but the man orders her to go upstairs since he has something important to discuss with Hamilton. Nancy sadly leaves the room, but she stays behind the doors. This way, she can eavesdrop on them. She overhears Harry asking Hamilton about his meeting with the mayor. However, Hamilton declines to disclose how the meeting went. Instead, he chastises him for bringing his mistress to a cheap motel. For him, it affects his reputation, which may hinder his plan of implementing the zoning switch in their town. Nancy feels betrayed, especially since her father knows and condones Harry's infidelity. Following this, Nancy heads to their attic and revels in the nostalgia of her childhood toys. As she browses through her photo album, Harry appears and he kisses her. Nancy confronts him for lying that he stopped seeing Honey, but Harry debunks her idea. He deceives Nancy by reasoning he met Honey at the motel to break up with her. But since she genuinely loves him, Nancy quickly falls into his deceit. Harry proceeds to ask Nancy about what transpired in the desert. At first, Nancy refuses to share, afraid Harry might perceive her as a person with a mental health condition. He assures her that he won't think of her that way, so Nancy eventually reveals what she's seen. The next day, Hamilton visits Honey's residence and notices she's reading an accounting book. She shares it's about her future, garnering a laugh from the man. Insultingly, Hamilton believes she has no future, especially if she continues to pursue Harry. Speaking of Harry, Hamilton informs her that Harry doesn't love her and only wants money. Unbothered, she asks him if he talks to Nancy and his late wife condescendingly. She hits a nerve in him, leading Hamilton to insult her intellect. Moving on, Honey wonders about the purpose of his visit, and Hamilton orders her to forbid Harry from interfering with his plans with the mayor. She is confused about why he can't do it himself, so Hamilton clarifies that Harry will listen to her more. Honey asks him if he has more to say, and Hamilton promises to pay her and even give her a council position if she succeeds in keeping Harry at bay. With a fake shocked reaction, she expresses she might want more than what he offers. Regardless, Hamilton threatens to give her nothing in return. Meanwhile, Dr. Cushing and Nancy talk about the desert fiasco last night. Once more, Nancy's reserved about sharing her experience, for she doesn't want the psychiatrist to pity her. Dr. Cushing assures her she'll listen with an open mind. With her words, Nancy shares that she encountered a spaceship, but she stops midway. She thinks she's beginning to sound like her late mother who suffered a deteriorated mental health. The psychiatrist thinks otherwise, and she reminds her she's not her mother. Still, Nancy wants to hear her opinion on whether she believes that she has indeed seen a spaceship. Without a second thought, Dr. Cushing confirms. After their session, Harry corners Dr. Cushing on her way out and inquires if they've talked about Nancy's experience last night. The psychiatrist figures out he's trying to know if she has diagnosed Nancy. Finally, Harry admits that he thinks Nancy has a mental health condition and compares her to her mother. Hence, he suggests that Nancy must be sent to a psychiatric hospital. His words disgust Dr. Cushing, so she insults his narrow-mindedness. Later that day, Nancy confronts Harry for calling Dr. Cushing, but he opines she needs their session due to her bizarre experience in the desert. While at it, he recommends she goes someplace to rest. Nancy deciphers that he wants her to be in a psychiatric hospital, and Harry doesn't deny the idea. As a result, Nancy is firm that what she's encountered is true and hopes she can make Harry witness it too. Upon hearing this, Harry agrees to accompany her tonight, but with conditions. If they find it again, he promises to give her a public apology. However, if they never see it, Nancy has to be sent to a psychiatric hospital. During the night, the couple finally arrive at the desert, but the spaceship is yet to appear. Harry begins to doubt the reliability of Nancy's claims, further saddening his wife. Suddenly, the car's radio plays a load, confusing Harry. At last, the spaceship appears, proving that Nancy's encounter was real. In happiness, Nancy approaches the spaceship and it directs a light on her. This traps her in the process, so Harry tries to save her. Regardless of his efforts, the spaceship takes Nancy away and it disappears into the skies. Only one of her sandals is left, which Harry quickly grabs before leaving. A while later in Honey's salon, the woman experiences weak electric currents. Then, she senses a presence from the rooftop, heightening her suspicions. She decides to face the possible intruder, so she grabs an axe and ascends the stairs. On the rooftop, Honey discovers a sandal on the ground and picks it up. Out of nowhere, a disoriented Nancy appears and profusely compliments Honey's name. She is evidently confused with Nancy's behavior, so she asks how she's reached the rooftop. Eagerly, Nancy points to the skies and urges Honey to keep it a secret. Then, she collapses, making Honey question why she chases men with baggage. Shortly after, Dr. Cushing informs Hamilton and Harry about Nancy's status. According to her, Nancy's experienced hysterical amnesia, but her memories will return soon. However, she wants to talk to the emergency room doctor about Nancy's blood test. Harry wonders if there's something wrong with his wife, but Dr. Cushing denies it. It's just that she discovers the test might be running improperly due to the unusual hormone levels. Worried that Nancy's condition might hinder his plans, Hamilton asks for confirmation if his daughter is really alright and not hallucinating. Harry straightforwardly confronts Hamilton for his insincerity toward Nancy and emphasizes he only needs his daughter for money. While they're arguing, Nancy appears and asks Dr. Cushing to drive her back into town. Hamilton disagrees and urges her to return to her room to rest. Nancy insists she has to leave for she's tired of people thinking she's out of her mind. Pretending to be concerned for his wife, Harry offers to drive her anywhere she pleases. Hamilton protests since he wants to know what he did to her in the desert. Stuck with their fight, Nancy informs him that she has no recollection of their encounter in the desert. Hamilton doesn't believe her, thinking Harry coerced Nancy to lie for him. Despite trying to pacify the argument between her husband and father, the pair remain stubborn. Harry wants to paint Hamilton as the sole villain, so he instigates the topic of how badly he's treated his wife, which resulted in her ending her own life. This topic is sensitive for Nancy, leading her to become angry. Because of this, Nancy's body begins to grow to a tremendous size. The next day, Harry introduces Dr. Loeb to Dr. Cushing, but she doesn't favor outsiders, especially with Nancy's concerning condition. Harry chastises her for assuming tasks regarding Nancy's physical well-being when her expertise only applies to Nancy's mental health. Without a choice, Dr. Cushing takes Dr. Loeb inside a stable where a gigantic Nancy resides. The psychiatrist introduces her to Dr. Loeb, earning his awe. When Dr. Cushing informs him about Nancy's anomalous hormone level, he suggests taking her to his private clinic. Nancy perceives this as a way to take her to a psychiatric hospital, so she profusely refuses. Still, Dr. Loeb tries to negotiate with Nancy, but the now angered woman is keen on staying. Intimidated by her strength, the man yields to her wishes. Following their conversation, a bunch of trucks containing Nancy's supplies are on their way to the Cobb's residence. Later on, Harry scolds Dr. Loeb for failing to convince Nancy to go to his psychiatric hospital. In his defense, negotiating with Nancy will be difficult because of her strength. Harry is curious about what made Nancy become a giant. Based on the available information, Dr. Loeb supposes her unusual growth is stress-related, as Nancy's blood levels indicate a hormonal imbalance. Harry makes fun of this discovery, but the doctor is seriously concerned about the possible strain on her heart. Upon learning this, Harry is ecstatic about the possibility that Nancy might have a heart attack. That night, Hamilton gives Nancy another set of contracts she needs to sign. She wonders how she'll sign them, especially since they're miniature. Harry explains she'll simply sign the cardboard and he'll reduce it so he can transfer it to the documents. For the first time in her life, Nancy disapproves of Hamilton's wishes. She orders him to enlarge the documents since he can reduce her signature. At first, Hamilton objects as he doesn't want the details of his business to be displayed in public. Nancy threatens she'll never sign them until she can read the contracts. Just after their conversation, Nancy is oblivious to Honey's scrutiny. She is astonished by the drastic change in Nancy's height. Due to her comment, Harry shares that the UFO's abduction of Nancy might have altered her hormones. With that knowledge, Harry informs her of his plan to cause stress and anger to Nancy discreetly, hoping she'll experience a heart attack. On the same night, Nancy bathes in the swimming pool, attracting Harry's attention. She invites him to watch the stars together, and he simply approaches her. He checks on her well-being, leading Nancy to reveal that her heart beats faster than normal. Because of this, Dr. Loeb advises her not to get herself worked up. Harry bids her goodnight upon learning about her current state. However, Nancy stops him and gives him a situation where she lies, saying he left her in the desert. Harry doubts she'll do such an action, especially since it's out of Nancy's character. In her defense, she's changed. But before she can say more, a sudden pain in her chest halts her. For that reason, she just informs Harry they have important matters to talk about about tomorrow night. The next day, Nancy further displays a change in her character when she declines to take Dr. Loeb's vaccine. This time, she doesn't mindlessly comply with his wishes and uses her right to question what's inside the vaccine. She learns it contains a mild tranquilizer and has Harry and Hamilton's approval. Therefore, she quickly takes the vaccine and throws it away. Later in the evening, Nancy arranges a romantic dinner for her and Harry. Once they begin, Nancy suggests exploring the changes with her, especially after discovering her hidden confidence and strength brought upon by her new physique. For her, this will be a new adventure and a possible way to save their failing marriage. Sadly, Harry uses this as an opportunity to cause her extreme stress. He pretends he's repulsed by her words, making it appear she is proposing something indecent. Nancy takes offense to this, so she slams his table, sending Harry flying. Still, Harry is able to recover and continuously insults Nancy by comparing her bedroom performance with Honey. Moreover, he reveals that he slept with her cousin, Vera. Now that she is furious, Nancy becomes lightheaded, leading her to collapse into the stable. Harry is victorious, but he immediately flees the scene. Shortly after, he heads to Honey's salon and surprises her with Nancy's diamond necklace. Harry happily informs her about Nancy's alleged passing. To celebrate their success, Honey gives him a sensual dance. Meanwhile, Hamilton's finally securing a deal with the mayor. Unbeknownst to them, Nancy's still alive and is on a hunt for Harry. Her arrival in town causes a commotion, but she doesn't care about it as she's keen on finding Harry. Sheriff Denby volunteers to find him, but Nancy supposes her husband's fooling around with Honey. Before she can leave, Dr. Cushing, Dr. Loeb, and his assistant arrive. Dr. Cushing tries to talk sense to Nancy, but the giantess has decided to take revenge because she's tired of being considerate. Nancy resumes her search for Harry throughout town, frightening the civilians. Consequently, the authorities contact Hamilton, informing him of the disturbance Nancy's caused. Initially, he doubts the report, but when he personally sees his daughter, Hamilton falters. Nancy arrives at Honey's salon and locates Harry with his mistress. Honey grabs her shotgun, hoping to subdue Nancy, while Harry hides cowardly under the desk. Undaunted, Nancy flicks Honey's shotgun and captures the frightened woman. Instead of hurting her, Nancy advises Honey to believe in her intelligence and capabilities. Afterward, she searches for Harry and finds him getting in his car. Immediately, she grabs his vehicle and takes him out. Nancy tries to confront him, but two helicopters pursue her. Left without a choice, she leaves for the desert with Harry in her hand. However, she fails to evade her pursuers since overhead power lines obstruct her way to the other side of the desert. A pilot requests she release Harry, but Nancy refuses. At that moment, Sheriff Denby orders the pilots to hold their fire until he gives the signal. Then, he hands Hamilton the megaphone so he can negotiate with her daughter. As usual, he talks to Nancy like she's a child, earning her disapproval. This leads her to expose that Hamilton was never a good husband and father. All he cares about is acquiring her inheritance and the town's riches. Afraid she'll reveal more, Hamilton asks Deputy Spooner to shoot Nancy, but she declines. This time, Hamilton raises the megaphone near Sheriff Denby's mouth, hoping he'll resume his signal. The sheriff emphasizes that nobody will fire until he says fire. Unfortunately, he voices the signal on the megaphone, causing the pilot to shoot Nancy. Thankfully, their bullets miss, allowing her to fight back. The pilot fires a missile to subdue the giantess, directly hitting her. Due to this, Nancy falls to the power lines, electrocuting her. Suddenly, the spaceship appears, and it takes Nancy alongside Harry. Everyone witnesses this, making them realize that Nancy is telling the truth about its existence. Moments later, Hamilton gets in his car to go home, but he finds Honey inside. He questions why she's in the car, but Honey tells him they need to talk as they'll become business partners from now on. Outside, a reporter interviews Dr. Cushing about the events that transpired earlier. The psychiatrist admits that even though she is unsure, she knows Nancy's finally got Harry all to herself. Meanwhile, inside the spaceship, a therapy session ensues among the male members. However, Harry refuses to acknowledge his negative traits. Nancy, alongside two giantesses, overhears his outburst. For this reason, she reprimands and enlightens him about the benefits of therapy, especially for his well-being. When Harry remains uncooperative, the two men proceed to show him their so-called trust exercise.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.